Chief Philippus, we really appreciate you taking out the time. A lot of public officials and public servants are afraid to even talk to the public or the press about things like this. When did you first become aware that Delta Force, the most elite training force in America, is what the Pentagon says, wanted to train with actual live fire or blanks here in San Antonio? Is that true?
Yes, that's correct. That actually started probably, I want to say, back in February when they first approached us, maybe even earlier than that, about doing some operations, in the San Antonio area.
What were your major reservations in asking the mayor to tell them that y'all didn't want them to train here and to cease training here?
Well, a lot of things happened. First of all, the organization came into the city and never really approached the city as a whole. We've gotten together with the mayor and said we need to speak to all these different departments and request some assistance. Various groups and individuals came into the city and approached different people at different levels. The police department was contacted, the city manager's office was contacted about using city facilities, various business owners were contacted through the economic development department, the fire department was contacted by different individuals, and so there was never any coordinated approach to the city of San Antonio. When we found out of that, we had some reservations, but we were willing at least to listen. But then we started finding out that discussions were happening at other different levels, and there was no communication, no coordination between that. We also found out that leases had been negotiated with private business people throughout the city to utilize their vacant buildings without any coordination with the police department, because we were originally told there were probably going to be a couple of locations, and later on we find out that there's 12 locations. And yet we were never brought into this at the beginning.
Last Saturday's Austin American Statesman did an article about how they're practicing taking over police departments in Chicago. In fact, I've got a copy of that. I can give you a copy of that after the interview. I should have brought it up from my car. I just remembered. That's one thing that some cities I've heard have had reservations about. They call it touring the police department, but they actually practice dynamic entry and other things at the police departments. I heard that they were planning to do this in Houston, that they've already done some training along with the Marines and other forces of the military. Have you ever heard of anything like this before?
No, I have not. They did offer to allow our SWAT teams to do training with them in these particular exercises, but our missions are different. Theirs deals specifically with international type situations. Our deals with local situations, and if an incident were to occur in this country, it would be local law enforcement, the FBI, and others that would deal with that.
Whereas the Delta Force is purely kill the terrorists.
Whatever it is. I'm not so sure what it is, but it's at an international level, and so our missions, our tactics are somewhat different. And I'm very proud of the SWAT team that we have. I think we have one of the best in the country. We do a lot of training for other agencies, and I think that we have the skills and the expertise to deal with those situations.
I heard it quoted that the mayor said that he didn't appreciate the dishonesty of the Delta Force. I was curious. We called the mayor's office, and Jackie O'Donnell, I believe is her name, she told us that you were the mayor's spokesman on this. Can you tell us exactly why the mayor would use such strong language and call them dishonest?
Well, I think that there were various approaches. For example, when I originally said no several weeks ago, matter of fact, a couple of months ago, but no was never no. And then no was never no. End of runs were done around to various community leaders. I had someone...
Excuse me, sir, you're saying that they ignored the police chief, and under our Constitution, you're the same as the sheriff, and you run the city or the county? You're telling me that Delta Force was ignoring your order?
Well, I don't want to say they ignored it, but in a roundabout way, yes, because what they would do, once I said no, they went to various individuals in the community to bring pressure to bear to get me to change my mind. For example, there was a community leader who I have a great deal of respect for, and we have a very good relationship that they went to. I get a call from him, and he says, Chief, there's some people in here that they're in town, and it was part of their role here. Didn't say who it was. They need to meet with the mayor and the police chief. Well, of course, this gentleman, I've worked very closely with him on a number of projects. I said, sure, have him give me a call. Now, I'd already said no. Well, then I find out it's the same group. So they identified somebody apparently that I know that's very high in the community to make an approach to me and get me to change my mind. Well, then when we said no, then some elected officials were contacted to bring pressure to bear. And then offers were made to give money, cash money, to elected officials' charities if they could get us to change our minds. I mean, as one of my deputy chiefs said, in some circles that's called bribery.
Well, it is called bribery, but more importantly, it's called manipulation of the constitutional system and the takeover of local police departments. And that $4,600,000,000 that we just saw in the Statesman that's so wonderful is buying them a lot of control if they can't buy the police chiefs off like they did Elizabeth Watson for that $244,000 a year job at the Justice Department. Let's hear him say that one more time.
To make an approach to me and get me to change my mind. Well, then, when we said no, then some elected officials were contacted to bring pressure to bear. And then offers were made to give money, cash money, to elected officials' charities if they could get us to change our minds. I mean, as one of my deputy chiefs said, in some circles that's called bribery.
Why do you think in Chicago, and if you're not aware of this, I'll get you a copy of it, that they're practicing taking over police stations and fire stations and bridges? That seems like a military takeover of a city.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even want to speculate on that. I wasn't that familiar that those types of things are occurring.
Oh, yes.
Certainly, there was no approach made to us to do those kind of things.
Well, that's good. You talked about a memo from Delta Force?
Yeah, because what happened is various elected officials were being contacted. I have 10 city council members and a mayor, and I just wanted to alert them as to what was happening. That these situations were occurring, that they might be contacted by these individuals, and that in the best interest of public safety, and that's what I continue to fall back on, we didn't feel that it was in the best interest of the citizens of San Antonio to do that type of thing. All I can say is that, no just never seemed to be no. And even after they told us, we don't need you, we're still going to do our training exercise at other locations in and around the San Antonio area, but we're allowed to do them here. Next time, I'm still getting contacted by various officials. I mean, they never would take no for an answer.
So they weren't respecting your jurisdiction?
They were not respecting our jurisdiction. I don't think they respected our decision to go into predominantly minority areas of the city where we had vacant warehouses and buildings and try to do those types of exercises at those locations in the middle of the night.
Oh, I'm sorry, middle of the night?
In the middle of the night. Sometime between 9 p.m. and midnight. People become frightened. And we drew a lot of our decision-making on experiences that had happened in a lot of other cities. We were very concerned with some things that have happened over there, and we didn't get any real good, clear answers.
So they were being secretive about it?
Very secretive.
And you the city and the mayor and yourself, as the police chief, you kind of felt that it was a little odd that they wouldn't trust y'all. I mean, y'all are the authorities here.
A little odd, and once I made contact with my peers in some of the other major cities, and they shared with me some of their experiences over there, the decision really was very easy. My interest as police chief is the citizens of the city.
Yes, sir.
Period. And I was not about to jeopardize the safety under an exercise of this magnitude under any circumstance.
Well, you can't say it any better than that. This isn't some wild conspiracy theorist. This is Al Philippus, head police chief in San Antonio, Texas. Oh, and the mayor, too, Howard Peak. He says that it's dangerous and that they're dishonest. And, of course, there's former Delta Force commanders like Stephen Barry there to tell you that it's to round up the general population. It's a practice run. Oh, and by the way, according to the May 10th, 1998, Sunday edition of the Austin American Statesman, Metro and State, they're conferring with people here in Austin, and sometime after June of this summer, they plan to have this training here in Austin, Texas. I guess our safety isn't important. Despite the track record in North Carolina, $100,000 damage, and in Miami, a stray bullet from the Delta Force going into a crowded restaurant. What is wrong with Kirk Watson? I hope he shows the same will that Mayor Howard Peak did. But I think Watson's just concerned with making all the big, fat, juicy kickbacks. Fix it, Watson. That's your job. Protect us. Quit sucking off us. And some of you are probably saying,
oh, Alex, why are you being so angry about this? Because the statesmen, they know this has happened down in San Antonio. They know this is going on. They're not that ignorant. 4 days after all this comes down, they're writing stories about how wonderful it is and how they're coming to town, these secret teams. I mean, this is dangerous. Helicopters could crash. Anything could happen with these low-flying night missions. And Kirk Watson and these people, they know this is going on. They should throw the Delta Force and all the rest of them out of our city.
And once I made contact with my peers in some of the other major cities, and they shared with me some of their experiences over there, the decision really was very easy. My interest as police chief is the citizens of the city.
Yes, sir.
Period. And I was not about to jeopardize the safety under an exercise of this magnitude under any circumstance.
What types of training were they wanting to engage in? I mean, again, I heard some reports that they wanted to do live fire with blanks and perhaps actually some incendiary flashbangs and things.
Yeah, I don't know the particulars of that. I know that they wanted to use some explosives for entry into some of these buildings, some of the so-called ceramic bullets, which would be fired into little traps, which were supposed to catch those, which would disintegrate supposedly on contact. But I know that in one city, American city, that one of those bullets got astray and going through a window and down almost into a restaurant. So things can go wrong.
What city was that?
I believe that it was in Miami. They may do some things at the various military bases here in San Antonio. That certainly is their jurisdiction, but we will not support any operations in the city limits. So again, the decision really was not that difficult. We have the interest of the citizens of San Antonio. This is a military city. We have a tremendous amount of respect for the military and what they do. But I do not have any respect for the tactics that were used by the advance team coming in here.
You're saying that they were disrespectful?
They were courteous and friendly to us, to our faces, but again, when you make a decision, you try to get information, to go around and try to put influence on you from pressure groups and individuals, either elected or in the community. That's sad.
You're not hitting to borderline Gestapo-esque tactics in politics.
No, I think it was always done very courteously, very professionally, but it still left a bad taste in my mouth.
And I've seen the September 23rd, 1997 Lair News Hour. 60 Minutes a few months later came out with a story about secret military training with local police departments. It seems that Miami has embraced it. It seems that LA has embraced it. And with some of the volatile problems they have, I could, in some instances, understand it. Are you aware, or exactly is the scope, if you can tell us, about the levels of military training between law enforcement here and the military?
We do not train with the military. Our mission and our roles are different. We trained on some of the military bases in order to have access to some of the firing ranges and things like that. But we've got a very good police academy facility out there that we can do a lot of that. We train internally inside of our own city.
I just got this news of this and just came down here in the last day or so. For you, sir, I'm going to get you a packet, and I'm saying this now, so I'll have to do it. I'm going to get you a Lair News Hour. I'm going to get you 60 Minutes, and they tell you it's wonderful. I'm going to get you some of the other information where local... Now, here's the question, and this is my last one. I really appreciate the time. Where local police commanders, the commander of the LA SWAT team, sits right there on camera. He's also a consultant in other cities. And Peter Krasser. And he says, when they ask him about the training with Delta Force and other military forces, he looks at the camera and smiles and says, "I'm sorry, that's classified. I can't talk about that." Now, to me, that's when 6-8 months ago when the red flags went up, when I saw a local law enforcement official saying that something was classified with the military and he couldn't talk about it. And that's why we're here. Again, we just want to thank y'all for showing independence of Texas, of America, of San Antonio, that y'all aren't open to that. What do you think about, and I understand you haven't seen this, but if that is true on Lair News Hour, do you think that that's a red flag or something strange?
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's not going to happen on my watch here in San Antonio. It's just totally inappropriate. I was never approached or asked to maintain classified confidentiality on this whole issue. I was in the military, you know, I had a clearance, and I understand that, but nobody's ever asked me to sign anything or say anything of that nature. So,
what would you do if they did, if they said we need the local police to do something classified in conjunction with the feds? I mean, I'm not a total student of the Constitution, but I've read it 10 or 15 times, and I've read the Federalist Papers. That right there looks like police state to me.
we don't do that. If we need to work with the FBI, DEA, Secret Service, or other federal law enforcement agencies that have jurisdiction in this country, then we will certainly do that. But we're not about to engage in those kind of activities with various military groups. Exactly right.
Man, that's great.
I appreciate it.
This guy right here, this is the kind of law enforcement.